You guys, you got to stop here for a second because I got to get through this speech. I got to get through this speech before federal officials come here and arrest me for practicing capitalism. So we got some work to do here. Thank you, David. What a generous introduction, and thank you for that welcome. It's good to be back at CPAC with so many friends, and this, of course, it feels like coming home. I have to tell you, your enthusiastic send-off 3 years ago really propelled my campaign to the top of the pack, and of course that status turned out to be temporary. But when the journey was over, both Ann and I were filled with gratitude for your friendship and your loyalty. It warmed our hearts, and we thank you. A lot of you, by the way, have been asking me how Ann is doing, and I'm happy to tell you that she is great. Thank you so much. David, there's so many conservative leaders here this weekend that I was looking forward to seeing Governor Palin again. There's a rumor that she's been offered an $11 million book contract. And my publisher has also been talking to me about an $11 million deal. I'm just not sure I can come up with that kind of money. Now, it's an honor to be introduced by David Keene. His commitment to conservative principles has been tested and proven in many venues and over many, many years. Some of you were here when David attended the first CPAC meeting, 1973? Is that right? You've been here and in the movement long enough to know that, like every great cause in America, the conservative movement has periods of success and moments of setback. And in 2008, we had more than our share of disappointments. But we haven't come to CPAC to dwell on battles we've lost. We're here to get ready for the battles we are going to win. As conservatives, we face this new year with resolve, but without resentment. Our country has a new president, and he has our prayers and best wishes. In the last 8 years, incidentally, we saw how a president's political adversaries could be consumed by anger and even hatred. That's not the spirit that brings us together. We want our country to succeed, no matter who's in power. We want America to be prosperous and secure, regardless of who gets the credit. At our best, that's always been the mark of the conservative movement. In good times and bad, now, regardless of the circumstances, the interests of the nation come first. Now, right now, the interests of America are going to depend in many ways on the decisions made by President Obama. Those choices are his to make, whether we see eye to eye with him or not. We won't be afraid to disagree with him when we must, and we won't be afraid to agree with him when we can. One thing the president can know is this: that when he takes strong action to defend our country, we'll stand with him, and when we will always be there to support the brave men and women of our nation's military that he now commands. We make these commitments out of principle, and our principles don't depend on elections won or lost. Contrary to what you hear from some commentators on the left, the 2008 elections did very little to settle the most serious differences of opinion in American politics. Some of those issues were hardly debated at all in the fall campaign. As conservatives in opposition, we have a duty to press on, to state our case with confidence. Now, some critics speak as if we need to redefine conservatism. I think that misses the mark. America's challenges are different from year to year, yes, but our defining principles remain the same. Conservatives don't enter each new political era trying to figure out what we believe. Facing new and complex problems, we find the answers in principles that endure. Ronald Reagan used to say that the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant, but that what they know is wrong. We conservatives don't claim to know everything, but what we know is right. And conservatives believe in settling the great questions the way the founders intended, especially where the stakes are the highest. Courts that have undermined the fundamental right to life have shown an equal disregard for the rights of property and the rights of religious freedom. We've even seen them extend the rights to terrorist combatants who've killed Americans and who'd like to kill even more. In the way of judicial nominees, these 4 years aren't likely to be real encouraging for us. But we conservatives stand for causes that are too important to allow unelected judges to force their own biases on an unwilling nation. We may not always win at the polls, but we believe in democracy. We respect the will of the people. And across this country, we will not stand idly by as liberal judges try to rewrite the Constitution and override democracy. I'm often asked these days, what does the Republican Party and what do conservatives have to do to recover? I'll bet my answer is like yours. Our first concern isn't for political recovery. Our first concern is the recovery of our country. Because we're at one of those rare moments in history when the biggest tests come all at once. We don't have the luxury of taking them on one by one. We have to get a lot of things right, and all at the same time. We're in the second year of a major recession. And if we don't make the right choices, we could make things worse. Americans have already lost $12 trillion in net worth. And the pool of our nation's investment pool of risk capital has also shrunk by trillions of dollars. The president's move to stop the economy's downward spiral. Parts of the stimulus will, in fact, do some good. But too much of the bill was short-sighted and wasteful. I hope you noted, and many in our nation don't have cognizance of this, but every single Republican in Congress voted in favor of a better stimulus plan, the Barack Obama plan, one that focused on creating jobs immediately. But congressional Democrats couldn't restrain themselves from larding up with tens of billions of dollars for their political friends. Republicans wanted to stimulate the economy. Democrats wanted to stimulate the government. And so conservatives in the House and the Senate stood their ground and voted no, and they were absolutely right. So far, the administration has been pretty unclear on what it's going to do to address the huge decline in the pool of risk and investment capital. Those losses are going to be felt in businesses that don't start up and grow, and in jobs that don't get created. To grow the pool of investment capital, the last thing you do is to raise taxes on investment, as the president's proposed. The surest, most obvious way to grow our investment capital pool is to rule out higher taxes on investment. And I propose going one step further. For all middle-class Americans, the tax on interest, dividends, and capital gains should be absolutely zero.